Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the Retro Wrestling Room. We're here with another podcast today. We've got a very special guest today. We've got the national promoter of the NWA. We have... What was that?
You give me an intro, and I'm interrupting your intro to tell you that.
That's alright, no problem.
What is that, like a Super Saiyan thing? You see this above me? This is like I have the sun coming through. Looks like I'm glowing. Glowing. I'm Super Saiyan today, as they are saying. I watch Dragon Ball Z. You're lucky I got that for. Anyway.
That's about as much knowledge I know of Dragon Ball Z as well. I've heard the word Super Saiyan, no idea what it means.
There you go. I think it means you glow. Now I'm not glowing. It's off to this way.
Oh, there we go.
Second there. I mentioned it and it went away. That's how. I'm deserving, apparently. It's not deserving. It's part of the rules, I think.
The chaotic start, guys. We can only introduce the one, the only, Bryan Idol. Thank you so much for joining us today, mate.
Hey, what's up, man? Sorry to be calling you from the car, but sometimes life duty calls. You gotta hit the road. Plus side is I'm in my Corvette, so you're riding in a Corvette.
Nice. Where are we traveling to today, mate?
I gotta go back up to I'm going from my beach apartment up to my house.
Nice.
And I gotta go.
Bro.
I'm gonna do something to my classic motorcycles.
Oh, okay, fair enough. There is some brand new news coming out of the NWA that Duke City Championship Wrestling has become the 7th. Is that the 7th territory now?
I lose count. I don't know. And then technically you could count Fight the World Wrestling, which is not officially a territory. So it's 7 or 6 or 8. I don't know.
Yeah. Somewhere
between 6 and 8. Let's just call it that.
It's getting up there.
But yeah, no, we got super pumped to add Duke City. And man, all I could say about Duke City is, and again, this might not sound like anything talking to you because you're not living in the States, and if your listeners aren't, then they don't really maybe not have the same understanding of. So New Mexico is it's out west and southwest basically, and not a super popular place for wrestling as far as what's there, but definitely a huge fan base for it. So Duke City has emerged out of the tumbleweeds, if you will, and have put together an unbelievable company. And this company is capable of drawing hundreds of people any day of the week.
Right.
They run on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Sundays. It doesn't matter. Every time they run, they draw hundreds of people. They're always connected to some huge stuff in town. I think the owner, Fred, has a lot to do with that. He's the most popular sports talk DJ in all of New Mexico.
Mm.
And so he's definitely a known entity there. And so what they've built, man, is a very unique, character-focused wrestling company. And we're super pumped to be working with them with the NWA. And it was the kind of thing where the man has a vision. That's all I can say. And he definitely sought out myself and sought out the NWA and really, really, really wanted this to happen. And like I said, brings a lot to the table in his own right. So super, super good relationship to develop there. And I mean, it's as far as, again, then you talk about the fan side. The shows are entertaining and they're fun. They're not, they're not the most smart mark wrestling shows. They're
right.
More of an experience. You go there and it's I don't know, man. It's almost watching a cult classic movie. There's
right.
very eccentric characters and very it's very drawn out. It's not your typical independent wrestling, and I really, really love it. So they're very special. And we're just pumped to have them. But yeah, we're just building that territory system. And there's definitely a couple of names in that Duke City vicinity that are certainly worthy of a shot at the NWA, on the big times there. So it's cool, man. There's the give and take is already there. And so that's the whole point. I won't shut up. So I'll quickly tell you you know, the whole thing with the territories, man, is that the place to not only cultivate local wrestling and integrate it with the NWA, but also to cultivate local talent and integrate it with the NWA, as well as have a place for our talent to have more places to cultivate themselves. So everybody's cultivating everything. Everybody's growing on every which way. And you know, it's very, like I said, it's a give and take, and it's a synergy that's working out amazingly to this point. And still, I think, very under the radar, even though I do think the idea is being copied on larger scales, and rightfully so, because I'm a genius and I come up with good ideas.
Fair point. But no, like you said, a lot of big promotions, they are looking at doing that. It is more of a territory thing, like we had NXT UK.
If I'm being honest, I was part of the blueprints of those companies doing that too, way back when. So, not really surprised. I mean, I kind of was the one who was like, "Here's how you connect the dots on this." So, yeah, they are definitely copying, and you know, I do take some of the credit for it. So, it is what it is. It's not putting myself in trouble, but I don't really care. It's the truth. I mean, so it's whatever. And somebody could argue that it's not, but they'd be lying.
Well, smart ideas, though. You know, if somebody's going to spot the smart idea, if something's going to work, everyone's going to try and take that idea. You know,
and I think it speaks to the state of wrestling. You know, wrestling's always going to exist on a local level. I mean, look, I started in a backyard, and I'm not. It's not a oh wow, it's a 1 in a million story. In my backyard, wrestling fed was Tony Nese, Mike Mondo, me. So I mean, and a couple of others. So I'm saying when you get to the level of that, and you're like, you know, how many places all over the world? I mean, there's people in Uganda, right, wrestling in mud. Now they got a ring. I mean, talent's going to come out of there. Wrestling will always exist on a grassroots level, and there's plenty of good in that, and not all of it's good. But I'm saying there's plenty of good. There's a lot. There's always a well to draw from. So when you realize that and you understand how to connect the dots and make the most out of that, it's a really special thing.
Well, along those lines, we had a really healthy scene here in the UK. I think between, say, 2012 and 2016, something like that. It was really bubbling under the surface, and promotions like, say, ICW and Progress, they were hitting all these different venues, selling them out, and they were building bigger and bigger and bigger. All of a sudden, WWE, they saw that World of Sport... Exactly.
NXT UK, and that kind of slowed the game down.
It kind of emptied the scene.
To be fair, you know, if you want some insider info, which here I go again, right in my mouth. I think the landscape of what was supposed to happen kind of changed, and what I mean with that was I think there was maybe a bit of a different plan, and I think COVID had a lot of an effect on that.
Yeah, and
I think it is what it is, but I don't think it was the way it played out. I don't think that's how it was meant to play out. So I mean, I was there when, you know, Progress was working with Evolve and becoming you know, part of the WWE, and like, you know, same with Evolve, and so COVID definitely had an effect on the plan. So I think they're going back into that. But like I said, that's the Easter egg I'll give you. Go back to what you were saying. I'll just shut my mouth now.
No, that's okay. No, but what I was saying, like, all those companies, they were starting to build, like you said, we were building up and up. WWE saw that World of Sport was starting on ITV, which is a big channel here in the UK. They decided to run this WWE NXT UK. They kind of gutted the scene, and everybody kind of thought, oh, that's it now for the UK scene. Obviously it wasn't. You know, like you said, there's always going to be people coming through. There's always going to be new promotions popping up, new ideas. You know, it's never truly gone.
Well, in all fairness, and like, I don't want to be choosing sides or whatever it sounds like, but like, you can't blame any other business, whether they're bigger or not, for seeing success in an area and saying, hey, we have the capability to move into that area, and you know, we have a reason why people would want it, so let's go for it. And I think that's what the mindset was. It wasn't like I don't think it's as sinister as the internet makes things sound when
No.
people, because it would be like saying the same thing, right? Like NWA is doing the territories. Believe me, we have no ill intentions about hurting independent wrestling. We're trying to like help it. We're trying to foster an environment where we create a better, overall version of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but for every 10 people that would say it's positive, I'm sure somebody could find a negative. So I can't discredit WWE or anybody saying like, oh, what the idea is bad or whatever. I think it's what everybody makes of it, and it's always gonna happen like that. Someone's gonna see that there's a scene and they want to get in on the scene, and that's what happens. So I mean, I think who wins ultimately in the end is probably fans, because the standard
Yeah.
usually goes up. So people up their game, and you end up, and maybe it's not across the board. Like maybe you don't end up with as much local or as much other companies, but then the ones that are really standouts, those are the ones that survive, and that's where the level gets kicked up. And so you find talents that you otherwise might not have seen because the motivation level goes so much higher. So I just think it's all part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like you said, a lot of people did kind of see it in a negative way, but it's smart business at the end of the day. They would have been daft not to do it. Speaking of the NWA, the last episode of Power, you featured quite heavily at the end of the episode, shall we say. I'm going to throw up a clip from that match right now. You versus Silas Mason, which was a
Very large man.
he is a very, very large man.
I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'3", 230, and he makes me look small. And so he's a large guy. He really is. And the two of us are very big dudes, and he's way big. And then it all looked like a good idea. I'm beating him up there. Everything looks fantastic. And then that happens.
And then that happened, which was
And and I'll peel back the curtain, and I'll tell you that obviously this is pre-taped.
yeah,
So this was December.
yeah,
So, and the reason why I'm not so tight on peeling back the curtain is because I think it's funny. I don't know if you've seen. So that clip now is going super viral.
yeah.
There's a page that put it out, and it's like super viral all of a sudden. The clip came out a week ago, and then as of yesterday, like it started going really viral. So people don't realize that it's taped. So then people are looking on my social media, and they're seeing me advertising I'm wrestling this weekend, and they're like, okay, so he didn't really get hurt. And I would like to clarify in this moment, 100%, I broke my collarbone in 4 places.
Oh, jeez.
What you don't see on the TV is I do get up and I cut a promo.
Right. Okay.
But I think for storyline purposes, it was more compelling on TV to just leave it out, which I agree with. But I think for the fans in the room, it was important. And I did look like a badass because I really did get up. I was ready to wrestle again. It took a minute, but I was ready to wrestle again. And so I broke my collarbone in 4 places, and I ultimately had to get surgery about a week later. And so I got a metal plate and 7 screws in my neck over here.
Wow.
And so they'll stay there. And it took me. I probably should have took a lot more time off, and I haven't. I've just now, like last week was the first week, so it's been, I don't know what, 8 weeks. I think, right, 8 weeks since it was the first time that I was properly able to work out, like, and lift, like for real weight and do like my normal routine. Like I just got back into it. So but in the meantime, I wrestled as recent as 3.5 weeks after surgery. I went to Duke City and I won the Route 66 championship. And then another week and a half after that, or no, I think a couple days after that, I did a spot for NWA in Texas. But I didn't wrestle, but I did a spot. And then 2 weeks after that, I think, I did I did a full match again for NWA, and I did a couple other ones that I had a couple other bookings I had to honor. So I wrestled way too soon, probably. So,
There's some
but like I
injuries.
said, for those that think it's,
No, go
I'm
on.
saying that for those that think that it's fake, that I really get injured. Like, trust me, I'm still not even fully recovered. That's the truth. And it is what it is. It's wrestling, though, man. And, like, this is how I make a living. So sometimes, 60%, 70% is good enough. You gotta put your gear on and get out there.
There's some injuries in wrestling that happen, and you don't even know that the wrestlers got injured. I don't think there was any hiding in that moment. I think everybody that saw it was like, "Oh my god, he's got to be injured." That looked horrific.
Yeah, you can hear it. And I think live, a lot of people told me live that you could hear when I hit the ground. They were like,
Oh,
they were like, you hit the ground so, like, even though I've analyzed it enough in slow motion. It's not about as well as you could take it, considering, because what really happens if you break it down is the chair catches me in such a way after it hits the front of me, it kind of goes up under. There's so much force behind it that my leg then curls up and catches the rope, and when I do, it starts to send me into a flip. So then I do this flip, and for what that was, I landed it about as best as I ever could. And I almost made it, but I mean, it wasn't that I didn't roll smooth. I did. It was just so much force hitting straight concrete.
yeah.
That, what can you do? You can't. That's the law of physics, I guess. So.
And the grudge match is now set for the Hard Times show in March. I haven't actually got the date. Is it the 8th?
March 22nd.
22nd, I'm sorry. One even close.
Alabama.
Yeah. Right.
So it's March 22nd, Dothan, Alabama, and I mean, to be honest with you, I might be 100% by then, but I still wouldn't be in my classic shape. So it is what it is, man. I got my work cut out for me, and but I mean, look, I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't wait for the match, and I can't. I can't. I just love being in the ring, and I can't stay away. It's hard.
No. Like you said then, though, but how hard is it to stay away? Like, say, what was it? Did you say 3.5 weeks that you came back?
3.5 weeks. Well, it's the kind of thing. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, no one is pressuring me to go out there and do it. It's just I don't want to let people down, and I think maybe that's not a smart way to be, and sometimes you got to look out for yourself, and you got to be like, hey, this is what you're doing is probably put yourself in danger. But at the same time, I don't want to let people down. So my philosophy is like, if you can get out there, you get out there. And I'm a big fan of football, right? And like all my favorite quarterbacks, they never cried about when they're hurt and they play. There's ones that do, but then there's ones that you're like, oh my God, I had no idea that guy was like mangled like that. And they go out there and you get it done. And, you might not play your best game, but if you can get a win at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And that's the way I look at it. Like, if I can get through it and it's not terrible, and it's, then let's go. And then like you have to let go of like, oh well, I don't look as good, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. I'm like, all right, just let go of it for this one. Like, go out there, get through it. Everybody's dependent on you that is involved. You said you'd be there, you said you'd do this. So I do that until the wheels fall off. And like again, probably not a smart strategy, because then you run the risk of further injury or just being all banged up for a long time. But I can't help it. That's my personality, and I'm like, I got to be out there. So.
When we were speaking earlier, and that Ugandan wrestling came up, the mud wrestling type deal. Not quite the same, but a very unique wrestling promotion. You went to wrestle when you went to Japan. I'm not sure if it was Choco Pro then, or if it was Gatoh Move.
Gatoh Move.
It was Gatoh Move then. What is it like wrestling there? Because it's such a unique thing.
Look at that handsome young man. It's very unique.
Because you just see that like there's a tiny little mat. The fans are so close. I mean, some of those arm drags, you actually see the audience kind of move their legs slightly to the side. They're so close to them.
Literally creeping through the windows there. Yeah, man, 2019, what a year. I mean, I just look at myself right there and I'm like, man, I love 2019 Bryan Idol. He was awesome. The coolest part of all that was like I went to Japan with like one booking and turned it into I don't know how many, 20. Walked out of there with 2 contract offers.
Wow.
I was shooting for the stars. I was shooting for a New Japan one, and I had a meeting set up. And then, weirdly enough, the meeting got set up for New York because it was WrestleMania. And they were like, "Yeah, you sit down with Gatoh Move in New York." And then I was like, "Well, I'm in Japan." So
Yeah.
it was just weird to me. I was like, "Can I just have a meeting here?" But anyway, so Gatoh Move was kind of like someone was like, "Yeah, Emmy would love to have you there." And it's Emi Sakura who runs it, and she's AEW now, and which is awesome. It was totally amazing to see her in the United States. Like the first time I got to hug her here in the US, like I thought that was so cool because like it was, imagine like you said. So here we go into your question. I show up at this thing. I didn't even really realize it's just in a room, and like basically on the other side, there's like where the locker room is. It's like basically like a living quarters. And so you're just in this little Japanese village. Like you come off the train, you go over a bridge. There's like a bunch of shops and stores. Like it looks very, like I'm saying, when you get off the subway there, you're in like a very shopping center style area. Once you go over that bridge and like turn the corner a little bit, all of a sudden it's like there's just this little hut, and you go in there and it's it's Gatoh Move, and the floor is just those little mats. It's not really that soft. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But it's not like anything you want to wrestle on.
No.
And it's just like, you're just right there. You feel the weather. Like, I mean, it might as well be outside. It was pretty chilly when I went. It was it February, I think? So, I mean, it wasn't the warmest. And, we're just in there doing our thing. But, like, obviously the fans love it. And I think I did 3 or 4 shows there. And one of them, I actually sing. They wanted me to sing "We Will Rock You," which was not something I expected. But Emmy is a big fan of Queen. And so they had to do that. And probably, besides the wrestling part of it, and also, well, let me say, that's where we made friends with Valiant Aki and Masa Takanashi, who, what a good guy, man. Love that dude. And so had a great match there. I think that's what some of those clips were from that you were just showing. It was me and Valiant wrestling. And then I think he's done some AEW Darks. Good dude, too. But I really hit it off with Masa. We were having a good time. And then, so the wrestling part of it over there, like I said, a unique, definitely strange experience having to do it on the mats like that. And I think they did a lot of different stuff. And I was like trying to do it in my own way. So I was like, well, you guys do that, I'll do this. And I thought it was kind of a cool mix. And I think the people that were there appreciated it because it was unlike the other stuff that was happening there, because there's a lot of gymnastics kind of routine going on there.
Right.
And I was more like, hey, let's throw some strikes and like, let's do some like real chain wrestling. And so I thought it was cool to do that. And I think the most unique part of it was probably next door though, on the other side, with all the girls, they would cook food. And so we were like eating all this delicious food, and so here I am in Japan trying all these things, and so I thought that was pretty unbelievable. Like it really was like a very special feeling. So every time I think of that little hut or house or whatever you want to call it, I get a special feeling because I just remember those days that I spent there. And I mean, as a wrestler, you don't get too many experiences like that, I think, and so I'm very lucky that I got to experience that. And actually, it was weird. Coincidentally, a friend of mine, was asking me about Japan today, and I don't talk about it all the time. And it's 2019, after all, 6 years ago, and I was just like, yeah, man, what a trip as a whole. Like, I was like, I just really got so lucky. I was so lucky to have such an awesome trip there. So yeah, Gatoh Move, man, is and like you said, Choco Pro, as I understood it. Taco Pro existed, but that was when they used the big ring and they went and ran in different towns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the differentiation. I can't say the word. That was the differ. I don't know the word. Difference. We'll say difference
Yeah.
between the two. So that was what it was. So, but yeah, I dug it, man. It was pretty cool. I'll stop rambling.
That's okay. No problem. You had a big part in WWC, kind of hooking up with the NWA as well. How did that come about? How long were you, say, a part of WWC before that initial, or before them? You kind of spoke to them and kind of got the NWA involved with them.
So actually, when I started working for WWC, well, actually, the first time I worked for them, I was working for the NWA, and then every time thereafter, for like the next year or 8 months, whatever it was, I was not. So there was the connection between WWC and NWA is technically, as we're talking about the territories, there's only one territory that never closed, and that was WWC. So they were the last. They are the lone surviving territory. Now, one could argue that WWC rebranded and thus killed the territory, but it never changed owners, and it never, everything's the same structurally. So WWC has been like that. They had I can't think of how many years. What was the 40, 50? I think we're going 50 years this year. Is it 50?
Yeah, I was going to say 70 something they started, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I think 51 this year, 50 or 51. So I was on 49, 50, I think it's 51. I don't know. So anyway, they've been a territory, I think, for NWA since the early 80s. So it just made sense to link it back up. And, again, talk about being lucky, man. I don't know if a lot of people know this. And maybe this is some kind of, it sounds like BS. Like when somebody told me this, I'd be like, yeah, it's bullshit. But when I started wrestling in Puerto Rico, it was the kind of thing, there was a smaller fed, Ground Zero. And I reached out to the guy, and I was like, hey, I would love to, try to get into the scene there. I've always had a respect for the island of Puerto Rico and what it meant to wrestling, and, not necessarily the negative stuff. And because I knew that those crowds were like second to none back in the day. And every wrestler every legend I ever hung out with, anytime somebody talked about Puerto Rico, they're like, oh man, it was crazy there. Yeah. So I was like, all right. So I was like, I want to go. So I went, and there's not too many people, especially this is a few years ago, there hadn't been too many people in a long time, and at least a good 10 years or more from the stateside that were not Puerto Rican and, showing up in Puerto Rico wrestling. Right. So I was very lucky I got to do it, and not only that, I got over huge. So like by the second time I was in Ground Zero, they put the heavyweight championship on me, and I was like, wow, And so I was the face of Ground Zero for like 6 months, I don't know, and then Lawe was like another company that opened, and so I went there. They brought me there, and I did a little thing with like Alberto Del Rio. And that one was very high end, and I was like, all right, this is awesome. And then I think, I don't know whatever happened internally, but they've shut it down for a while. But in the process, WWC noticed me, brought me in for Anniversario 49, which was an awesome one. It had an altercation between Ric Flair and Carlos Colon. So I thought that was insane. And then I continued to keep in touch, and then they brought me back in there. I had won the WWC TV title, which is one of the most classic titles in the history of WWC, which blew my mind to win that title. And somewhere around there, now I'm getting to your question after I've talked for 5 minutes. Somewhere around there, things started. I started back with the NWA. Things were, heating up in Puerto Rico, and I was like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome to bring this back as a territory? The part I was saying was BS that I totally skipped over. It was when I was in Ground Zero one day. I'm standing in old San Juan, just like staring at an old building, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, how can I be the catalyst to something bigger here? Like, how can I bring this back a little bit to what it was like in the 70s and 80s? Like, how what can I do? Like, I'm like filming this imaginary promo in my head about like, let's open the doors, let's bring talent in, like let's bring people that you never thought would come here. And now fast forward, so the NWA thing, so even before that happened, all of a sudden, and this is a true story, because of the success I was having, word gets around in wrestling via Facebook, Twitter, blah blah blah. People see me out there doing my thing, having a lot of success out there, and then a lot of wrestlers from the States start hitting up feds in Puerto Rico, start hitting me up, hitting up other feds. Hey, I want to get out there. I'd love to come out there and work and all that. And then all of a sudden they're getting this influx of talent from the States that hasn't been there in 10, 15 years. And then as that's culminating, I'm over there like, hey, let's bring back the territory. Let's work on this. And then sure enough, they're like, yeah, let's do it. So NWA comes and we do like a little invasion thing, and it's still playing out. So, we would love ultimately to officially recognize it as a territory again, and maybe we'll get to that. But at the very least, the fans already got to see an NWA WWC crossover, and then we're working on something even bigger involving both of us. That if it pans out, I think wrestling fans around the world will be very happy.
Wow.
But just totally cool stuff, man. That's just playing with little pieces of history, and some people might not have any concept of it or care, but like to somebody like me, man, it means everything. I love the island of Puerto Rico, and I love WWC, and I mean it's I think some people like you just go, I hate bringing it up, but you go to where the haters go, and they the things that happened back then with Brody and stuff like that. So like people are like, oh no, I don't know, and I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, you have no idea how actually special this all is. So to me, I don't care about any of that stuff. That's stuff that happened in the past and things that people maybe don't know the whole story of, or blah blah blah. And it's unfortunate, and it definitely is a terrible thing. But like, there's so much there on that island. There's just so much there.
Like you said, like a horrific incident that happened, but to tar the whole promotion, to tar even that entire area, by that one moment, there was so much more to that promotion. You can't just, what was it? What's that saying? Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Bathwater, yeah, exactly, man. It's the truth.
Let's have a look there.
You've if your audio sounds weird, it's because it switched to the car because I had to put it on my charger for a minute. So if I can't switch it back, don't panic. I'll switch it in a minute when it charges up.
No, that's fine. That's brilliant. No problem at all. You're obviously a big historian with wrestling. So the fact that you managed to wrestle for promotions like WWC that you said like started in the early 70s. We also had the NWA, which started, what was it, the late 40s maybe?
NWA?
Yeah.
NWA is the oldest wrestling company in the history of the world for professional wrestling that's currently in existence. And so I mean, again, same thing. And I'll be honest, dude, wasn't the biggest follower of all the history of the NWA. Always knew what it was, always knew it existed. Can't sit here and say I was the biggest nostalgia historian or that I cared too much, but being in it and now adding to the history and the legacy of that, and also doing it as more than a wrestler and helping other wrestlers and helping everyone involved like leave more of a legacy in the NWA, and the right way, I would say, because like it's not run like crap, man. Billy does an amazing job and tries very hard to preserve the integrity of what the NWA is supposed to be. And I know, again, haters will always argue it and crack jokes and whatever. It's not true, man. Billy loves and respects wrestling and cares about the same things I'm saying, and so for us to be able to do that and for me to be a part of it in a big way is super, super special. And kind of something I never expected, I guess, in so many words, but I'm very lucky to be a part of it.
I mean, in your career, you've managed to be in the ring with so many different legends, so many different ages over time. I mean, if you just rattle them off, say the Hardys,
Blue Demon Jr.
Blue Demon Jr. You've been in the ring with Foley. There's Darby Allin on the screen there. When you're wrestling these different people, because obviously at different points of your career as well, what do you take from these people? Because you've wrestled with so many different styles as well. So it's like a Nick Aldis, for instance. There's so many different people that you've wrestled with.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to take from each person? Advice wise.
D'Lo Brown killing me there. You learn. I mean, some people you connect with, and some people you don't. I learned a lot from Mick Foley. I spent a lot of time. I actually trained his daughter for a little while too.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't necessarily get recognized thanks to the TV show and my buddy Dan Barry getting the credit, but that's cool. But yeah, I trained his daughter for a little bit, so I spent a lot of time with Foley, or enough time, I would say. And we definitely toured some other countries together, and I learned a lot from him. Not so much like he says a lot of the right things. You know what I mean? Like, he knows when to shut his mouth. I don't. So I didn't learn that from him. But I think that, what? If you said, what did you learn from Mick Foley? Leave wrestling a better place than you found it. Leave each place you go to a better place than you found it. That I take directly out of Mick Foley's mouth. So he taught me that. Sabu trained me a lot and taught me a lot about wrestling. Balls Mahoney taught me a lot about like life on the road, and I mean, that sounds crazy, but I mean, he did, man. And he taught me how to survive in this business. And so, I mean, you learn bits and pieces from everybody. Roddy Piper taught me about what it means to be, generous to your, your coworkers, and, when to stand up for yourself. BDP taught me about humility and accepting, accountability. Even Goldust taught me a little bit about accountability too. And these are, I don't mean it from just in ring. I'm talking, these are personal talks with these guys. And the things that's where you learn the most is traveling with these dudes and car rides, or sitting down with them at dinner, and not asking them questions about themselves, but asking them questions about the business and what you're doing, and how to be more prolific, and how to just emulate some of the things that have worked for them. So I'd like to think I was smart enough to talk about that, instead of like, hey, remember that time when you were in the Royal Rumble and you did this and this? Yeah. Like, that was never my thing. Like, luckily I don't have that good of a memory, so I wasn't like, I gotta ask you about this one time. You know what I mean? It just never, very few. And the things that I did remember, maybe that I asked him about, didn't directly involve those people. And I was like, hey, what's the deal with this and this? You know what I mean? I would ask him some of the most random, like, I used to get a lot of, like, Foley used to laugh a lot. Like, I would ask him some of the stupidest, weirdest, random things, and he would, like, die laughing that I even knew that person's name. He'd be like, how did you even know who that is? And I'm like, yeah, I just happened to see it once. So I was smart enough in that regard to ask the right questions and learn those things. And I was definitely lucky to be in a ring with a lot of these people. More so, I think I guess the word's ironic. I don't know. I'm not an English major, but it's funny because I also felt lucky in the moment, not realizing that all along, like, I fit the part. You know what I'm saying? Like, as crazy as that sounds, it's like, it's not that I didn't believe in myself. I did. I thought I was very good, and I always did. And I was probably overconfident. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't always think I realized how I looked from the outside. Like, if you're looking at me and you're like, well, yeah, he looks like a wrestler. That's a wrestler. Like, he should be there. Right. So, like, I didn't necessarily see myself like that for whatever reason for a long time. And I mean, until probably fairly recently. So, I mean, that's just me. And, like, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I don't really know. Remains to be seen. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. That's a weird shadow. It's just one of those things. You just got, but you learn from those people by being with them. And I think if anybody was watching this and trying to have a takeaway, it's you know when you have any person's time that you admire or you look up to, try to ask them the questions that you think will help you learn something more than saying, "Hey, remember when?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. Quickly before we let you go tonight, you're actually coming back to the UK with Natalie Markova very, very soon, I understand.
We have a bunch of dates. Uh, if you check the socials, you'll probably give a big head scratch there. If you check the socials, you'll get the more accurate thing. But I know I'm coming in for PCW. That one sticks out to me.
Yeah.
They've been around a while, and it's catchy three letters. So all I can tell you is like mid March. Check the socials, and you'll see the dates for when that is, and yeah, should be good to go. And I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while. Last time I came there was 2016, maybe 17.
Wow.
I think it was 16, 2016. Okay. And I did something for Fight Nation and somebody else. So I did a few shows there, and like Weymouth and Canterbury, which to an American looks like Harry Potter World at Universal. Yeah. I remember that. It was the first thing I thought. I was like, man, this looks like Harry Potter World, dude. And I did have Nando's there. And also Tim Thatcher ate a cold chicken that was from the grocery store across the street, and he just stood in the street and just was eating it like this, like off the bone. And I thought, what a sight for the people that this large, like Tim Thatcher is not like the hugest, but he's like so wiry and athletic looking, and like the beard and his disposition as he's politely just gnawing on a cold piece of chicken, like straight out of the refrigerator section. I just thought it's burned into my brain eternally for my memories of the city of Canterbury, or if it's a town, I apologize. Yeah. But yeah, man. So it's exciting to go back to England. I always want to try to get out to as many other countries as I can. Hopefully there's people there that want to see me. I definitely have some people that hit me up that are like, hey, I'm so excited you're coming. And I really appreciate that, because at the end of the day, yes, this is a job, but if you're like, where's the biggest motivation? It's always from the fans. And if people aren't enjoying what I'm doing, then I shouldn't be doing it. So like, I'm very grateful, and I'm not one to shy away from a hug and a handshake and a how you doing, and you talk to me, tell me what you want to tell me. I try to be pleasant, usually, and I try to pay attention as best as I can. So looking forward to any fans that want to see me, and I'm sure Natalia does as well. And so you can check us out mid-March, and if you look at the socials, we'll send updates there. And don't forget, watch NWA Power. Right now it's on X. Could be somewhere else in the near future. You never know. And I mean, things are cooking, man. And I broke my collarbone, but I'm back already. And it's been a wild ride.
I think it is at 6:05 Eastern. Is that right?
Yeah, 6:05. So that's right now. There's a new episode coming out in an hour and like 15 minutes, a little less, 12 minutes, I think.
That's it. If you're here in the UK.
Minutes. No, 15, I don't know, 17 minutes. Hour and 17 minutes from now, boom, NWA Power debuting, new episode on X, which I don't get. Can I just say this? I talk enough anyway, I might as well.
Yeah.
I don't get the people complaining that we put it on X. Yo, Billy put it on X for these reasons right here. X is easily accessible in most countries. There's no paid ads that come through, so it's not even on YouTube. You got to suffer through the interruption or the whatever. You don't have that problem on X. I just don't understand why people complain. Plus, again, even YouTube, it's a site that everybody goes on YouTube. I get it; it's a button click away. However, you could already be scrolling X, and then it's right there on X, and then all your friends are on X. So when you talk about it in the comments, you know all your friends see it, and their friends see it, and then you can all interact. So I just don't see. I mean, I think it's a political thing when people start complaining about X, and I hear you, I get it. Everybody's entitled to that, and that's totally fine. But to be honest, I don't care if Darth Vader owned X. I would just use it anyway, and I wanted to watch wrestling. I'd be like, I don't care. I don't have to give any real information. It's not like I gotta plunk down my social security number to go on X. So it's like I don't understand why people get so worked up, and I'm not trying to piss them off and make fun of them or mock them, but I mean, it does get a little, annoying when I gotta read all these comments all the time, like, go back on YouTube. I'm like, what's wrong with X, man? It's free. You know what I mean? It's free and no commercials.
Yeah. But Bryan, like you were saying, or like we were saying, I don't think it's, what's the best way of putting this? I don't think the wrestling fans who just enjoy wrestling, I don't think they really care where it's on as long as they get to see it. I don't think they really care if it's YouTube, if it's Twitter, they will love it. It's the people that argue about ratings and you drew so much. It just blows my mind, the fact that can affect the way you enjoy a product.
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to those types of people want to feel involved and like to have a say in a thing. And if I was speaking directly to them, I'd say, "Hey guys, that's great. We want you to be involved." But I would say this, if you approach things from a more positive perspective, you'll probably enjoy it a little more because, I always say this about wrestling, right? Nobody goes to a movie theater and spends, $25 for a ticket and $20 for popcorn and a soda, and before the movie starts, sits down in the seat and goes, "Ha, I'm an idiot. That guy in front of me is an idiot. This whole thing sucks. What are we doing here? This sucks," right? So I just don't understand the level of insane negativity. It's like, just try from a positive standpoint. Maybe say, it's on X and I like it, but I wish it was on YouTube. But I watch it on X. But like, it's never that. It's like, you guys are idiots. What are you doing? Put it on YouTube. And it's like, so how can you enjoy what you're watching if you're just already in a bed? You know what I mean? So that's just my opinion. I'm not hating on anybody, but I wish people, wrestling fans as a whole, there's nothing wrong with wanting to feel involved. I just think if you did it from a more positive mindset in a more positive way, everybody would be a lot happier in the end.
I think, 100% right. Last question before you go. What is next for the NWA? We've touched on that they are picking up different territories. It is building and building. I know we said it doesn't matter about viewerships to the fans, but the viewerships is going up and up. The crowds just seem to be getting bigger and bigger. What is next?
Oh, you're welcome.
For the rest
you're
of the
welcome
year?
For those big crowds. I don't know if you watch Billy Corgan's Adventures in Carneyland, but I would say Bryan Idol is a big part of those big crowds. And it is a fact. Like, we are in a different hemisphere now as far as what we're drawing for live events. And, it may not last forever, but it certainly hasn't. I haven't had a strike yet. So it's, as the national promoter, we're going on almost 2 years here, and I'm a year and a half, to be fair, but I'm hitting home runs, and it's not just me, but it's under my regime here. And if I said what's next, I'm dying to tell you. I'm dying to. But then at the same time, I want to be like, there's not too much next, and then just watch everybody's head explode.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you. If you ask me what's next for the NWA, I'm going to say the impossible is possible. And let's say it like this: the impossible is possible. This is not something I thought out, so I'm just trying to think. This is now you're watching the wheels in my brain turn as I say it. So, we can start with the impossible is possible, and that's its own thing. And then I would also say, yes, I mean, you never know until you see it. So there you go. I don't know. Take that for whatever it's worth. Okay. That's all I can tell you. And again, I'm a big. The thing about me, if you want to decode me fast, is like, I'm not full of BS, man. So like everything. It's funny because I think that's the. Was that a is that a paradox? I'm not an English major, man, and I get hit in the head a lot. But I'm saying everything I say sounds like BS, but then it's actually not BS. That's the
Right,
crazy
okay.
part about me. So I'm saying that's if you take anything away, it's like I sound like a rambling madman, but actually, if you decode it all, it's all there. So that's what's next for the NWA.
Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I know, we're just so happy to have you on this channel. I've been a big fan for a long time, shall we say. And congratulations on everything that's happened with the NWA. I know from a wrestling standpoint, it's amazing to see you on a bigger stage, but being this national promoter now for the NWA and to see it growing, like I said, it's congratulations.
Thanks, man. It's a very cool thing, and I don't want to underplay it, but I mean, the amount of years I've been in this game and whatever, I got to tell you, I feel very blessed about the collarbone thing because the initial couple of talks with the doctors was that could have been a lot more tricky than it turned out being.
Right. Okay.
And when you break a bone in 4 places like that and have the level of damage I had, which is kind of hilarious. Because if you asked me, I'd be like, it wasn't a big deal. And I was like, they're like, no, that's a very bad collarbone break. And I was very lucky about my shoulder. And so that could have been game over for me in the ring, or at least for a long time. And I would have had a much bigger hill to climb back from. And so I take credit for it because I'm like, well, I'm built like a tank and it is what it is. But I do feel very blessed and I feel very lucky that it didn't interrupt my journey here, and so keep on rolling, man. That's why I told you I go to the wheels fall off. I don't really care, but I know I'm lucky though.
Maybe if you were still cruiserweight Bryan Idol, it would have been a lot worse. You wouldn't have taken it so well.
Or maybe I just would have not taken it like that. I don't know.
There's that.
There's advantages to both, man. Because I mean, I used to feel like I had anti-gravity shoes on. Now I feel like I got concrete cinder block shoes on. Serious fun fact, and this is the last thing I'll say. I mean, if you say you followed my career for any length of time, one of the biggest changes I made, and I could jump. I always wrestled wearing boots, and I could do all the flips, and I could jump very far and high with boots on. And I'm saying as the years go by, I switched now to wrestling shoes and kick pads, and thank God I did, because it's like the weight I'm in, the size I've put on over the few years, it's like wearing you know what I mean, it's like wearing a somebody else as a jacket. I'm saying every little bit helps. So I had to take off the heavy boots and switch to lighter footwear just to get some of the weight off me on the bottom that I put on the top. So, I mean, it's been a thing, man. So, that's just how it goes. You got to make adjustments as you go. But yeah, cruiserweight Bryan Idol, he might have been able to just flip all the way over and that would have been good to go. But not, 230 pounds of beef, it doesn't move like that.
Thank you so much, Bryan. We're just going to shut down the show here. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Once again, obviously, got to thank Bryan Idol for coming on to the channel. What a guest. I think everybody will enjoy that episode. And make sure you check out NWA Power every week on X. It is 6:05 Eastern. Here in the UK, it will be 11:05 every single week. Every single Tuesday. Make sure you tune in. Please leave a like and subscribe, guys, and hopefully we will see you for another podcast soon. Peace.